Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media, and I just can't help myself. I am on a comic book kick, which is why when I look over at my shelves, which I have everything that I'm going to share with you guys sitting on some shelves over there, and at this point, there are more comic books on there than there are movies, which I know is not going to appeal to everyone, but I want to share with you guys all of my physical media pickups. So today we're looking at another comic book stack. I have some just standard trade paperback or collected issues, and then DC compact editions, plus a Marvel Premiere edition. So lots to get through today. Let's not waste any time at all. Let's dive right into another comic book haul. So I'll get started with the non-mainstream ones here, the non-big two. So these ones are not Marvel or DC, and I went to my local comic book store and found these in like their sale bins. I feel like every comic book store has a section where they're just trying to offload stuff, and that's where I found these for a really good deal. I got these first like 4 here, I think it is, yeah, for $5 each, which is just a really good deal for these. So first up, this one is from Image. This is The Milkman Murders, written by Joe Casey, art by Steve Parkhouse. So I've heard of this one previously, and I was quite surprised to see it within the bargain bin, but this is a horror story, according to the back here, and one that I'm very intrigued to check out. I will show some of the art here, so you can see kind of what's going on. But yeah, I believe this takes place like in that era where milkmen were still a thing, but things are going to take a dark turn. So because of that, I am very intrigued to see what this one is all about. It says on the back here, a mild-mannered housewife finds herself at the dark epicenter of the horrors of suburban life. So that's kind of what's going on here. But it looks like fun, and I really like the art style on this, so should be an enjoyable read. This is The Milkman Murders by Joe Casey and Steve Parkhouse. These next 3 I'll show together because they're all part of the same franchise, and they're all from IDW. So I found these for, like I said, $5 each. You guys know I am a sucker for novelizations or media tie-in. Well, I found some comic book tie-ins as well. This is Transformers, the movie adaptation. So you knew I had to grab these once I saw them. Like, I cannot wait to read this one. This one is still sealed. I'm just going to keep it sealed for right now, but I will show the next 2 as well. So that's Transformers, the original film adaptation, which I love. I know, not super popular opinion, I don't feel like these days, but I love the Transformers series. And then we have an adaptation of Dark of the Moon. So that's this one, and you can see some of the artwork here. I mean, it's pretty typical. If you've ever seen any, Transformers artwork from IDW, you probably have a good idea of what you're looking at here. But yeah, I think it just looks fantastic. And another movie that I really enjoy. So that is the Dark of the Moon adaptation. And then finally, this actually is pretty interesting because this is the Revenge of the Fallen sequel. So I thought that was really cool. This one takes place after Revenge of the Fallen. And you can see some of the artwork inside here as well. Just looks really nice. So yeah, very excited to read all these. I'll probably have to do another watch through of the movies and then come back and check these out. But yeah, love this. So we have the Nefarious, which is the Revenge of the Fallen sequel, the Dark of the Moon adaptation, and the original film adaptation. Very good price on these. Couldn't pass them up. Okay, let's move over to DC now, and we'll stick with adaptations. I was at Barnes & Noble just browsing their comic book section, and I came across this one, and I couldn't put it down. This is Batman, the 1989 movie adaptation. This is so cool. I love this. So I know there is another series of, I think it's Batman 1989. I think that's what it's called, and it's a sequel to the movie. I actually have that one, but I've not had a chance to read it yet. I need to correct that. But this one is the original adaptation. So when the movie came out, this was released right around the same time. And so you can see the art style on this is very 80s, and I love it. This is just such a cool thing that they've re-released. I am so happy I was able to find this one. So I'm intrigued to check this out. This is another one I haven't gotten around to, but yeah, you can see actually it looks like it's like only half of this book is the actual, story of Batman 1989. Where is it? And then it goes into, what is this second half here? I don't even know. it looks like different artwork. I don't know what this is, but it's like black and white as opposed to full color. So I wonder if that was the original release and then they redid it in color. I don't know. I'm sure it says in the back here, but I don't know offhand. But either way, this is a really cool find, and I couldn't pass it up. Once it was in my hands and I looked at it, I knew there was no way I wasn't coming home with this. So the final, I think at least, the final adaptation for today is Batman, the 1989 movie adaptation. So this next one is a random eBay pickup, but recently, I don't remember exactly when it was, but recently the New 52 version of Nightwing Omnibus came out, and I was looking at it and it had a really great price on in-stock trades, and so I was contemplating picking it up, but then I remembered, you haven't read it yet, you don't really need the omnibus for it, and I looked through my collection. I already had volumes 1, 2, 3, and 5, I think it was, so that was the entire run of Nightwing. The only thing I needed was volume 4, which is subtitled Second City. This one I didn't have in the collection, so of course I went on eBay. I got this one for like $8, I think it was shipped. It was very cheap, which of course is cheaper than the omnibus would have cost me. So I just decided to stick with this one, and eventually will read these if I love them. Then of course I can always, there we go. I didn't know if there was nudity or what was going on there. It wasn't. It was just a guy topless. But anyway, yeah, I didn't know if this would be something I loved or not, but I figured, for $8 more, I can finish the entire series, which I did purchase, I think, almost exclusively through Ollie's. I figured it's a no-brainer. Just grab the whole thing, read it from start to finish, and go from there. So, yeah, I had to pick it up. The omnibus being released got me thinking about my collection. So, Nightwing Volume 4 concludes the entire run of the New 52 Nightwing for me. So, happy to add this one to the collection. And this one is written by Kyle Higgins, with art by Brett Booth, Will Conrad, and Norm Rapmund, I believe is how you would say that. This is Nightwing Volume 4, Second City. All right, so now let's move over to the DC Compact Editions that I picked up. Now, this is a relatively new line, and it is pretty awesome, in my opinion, because the price is ridiculously cheap at $9.99. That is so cheap. Now, of course, you'll see here, this is American Vampire Book 1 by Scott Snyder, and what I was going to say is that you'll see why it is so cheap is because of the size and why they call it the Compact Edition. So this is the Compact Edition versus a standard trade paperback. So yes, it is notably smaller, but again, for the price, I think that's fine. And how I treat these, and one way to treat them, I guess, is just check these out. If you love the story, then you can upgrade to the omnibus or some other large format item at that point. But for me, like a lot of these, this is probably as far as I'll go, specifically with American Vampire. Now, way back in the day, we're talking like 15 years ago when this was being released I think this came out in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. I was collecting floppies, like single issues for a little while there, very, very short amount of time. And this was one of those that I read in that form, if I remember right. It was either that or I read it in that same era, but in a trade paperback. I don't remember exactly, but I remember reading this, and I don't remember loving it, but I thought it was decent at the time. And so I wanted to give it a shot. This is going to have the first 11 issues of American Vampire. And of course, there's going to be, presumably future books as well. But yeah, I had to check this out and see how it was. Now, all that talking, let me show some of the artwork here. And yeah, so there is a lot of these that I am interested, or that I was interested in picking up if I didn't already own them in some other larger format. So yeah, this is a really cool style of book. So the first one I grabbed is American Vampire Book 1 by Scott Snyder. This next one was also just a random Barnes & Noble pickup and a story that I have read. This is All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. So this is one that I read back in around that same time, like 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And I really enjoyed this. This was the only Superman I'd read at the time, and I thought it was very well done. I thoroughly enjoyed the story. Frankly, I haven't read that much Superman even since then. I have read a couple, which I'll talk about on the channel here shortly. But yeah, this was one. This is kind of the Superman story for me at this point. So had to grab this one and see, just revisit it and make sure that I still love it. I probably won't need to upgrade this one. I just don't see myself doing that. This is a 12-issue run, and it's going to be the entire story, which is really cool. So yeah, great artwork on this. I think Frank Quietly's art is just excellent, but Quietly, I'm saying quiet. I've always said quietly, and I literally just looked, and that's not quiet. It's Quittily? I don't know. You guys know better than me. Let me know down below. But anyway, it's Grant Morrison. It's interesting. It's a very well done Superman story. This is All-Star Superman. And last but not least for the DC Compact Editions is a story that I've wanted to read for as long as I can remember, and I don't know why I haven't gotten around to it, but this is coming up shortly on my read list. This is Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee. So this is, how many issues in this? Well, 619 minus 608, do the math there, like 11, 12 issues, because there's also Wizard number 0 in here. But yeah, this is one of probably the most infamous, it's one of the most infamous Batman stories out there. And the fact that I haven't read it is kind of embarrassing. Like, this is one that I absolutely need to get around to. Of course, just an iconic story. And if you are a comic fan, you probably already have read this and love it. But this is one that I would love to upgrade to the omnibus, because that is available. But I want to read the story first. And it was $10. That's an easy, just impulse buy while you're at the store. So yeah, happy to own this in my collection finally after all these years. Batman Hush. So of course, if DC has introduced the DC Compact Edition, well, Marvel has to answer in some way, and they have with their premiere collection. We have Captain America, the Winter Soldier by Ed Brubaker. So this is another very infamous story, but I think it's interesting to talk about the actual physical book itself, because as I mentioned, this is Marvel's answer to the Compact Editions. Now, you'll notice if I put them side by side, the Marvel edition is a little bit bigger, but it's also $5 more expensive. So it's at $15 versus 10, which frankly is still a really good price. As you can see on the back there, still a really good price, but it is more expensive. But you're getting a little bit of a bigger book as well. So, you win some, you lose some, pros and cons, right? It just is what it is. I know a lot of people, just from reading different Reddit posts and whatnot, a lot of people don't like the premiere collections where they think DC is just winning on that front, but hey, it is what it is. I don't mind. This is another story. Been meaning to read for the absolute longest time. I love the movie that is based on this, but I've never read the actual comic before. So excited to finally have this in the collection and see what it's all about. See how directly the movie took from this. But yeah, so happy to have this one. Love the story of the Winter Soldier. I just finished The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus. Honestly, I didn't like it, but then we watched Loki, really enjoyed that, and now we're continuing our way through the MCU, which I have a couple movies here to talk about in the coming weeks. But anyway, I'm rambling now. This is Captain America, the Winter Soldier by Ed Brubaker. Let me just show this one randomly. I got it from Free Comic Book Day. I didn't actually go to Free Comic Book Day, but I went to a local comic book store a couple days later and bought something. And so he's like, hey, do you want a Star Wars issue? Of course I want a Star Wars issue. Why wouldn't I? So this is the Free Comic Book Day edition of Star Wars #1 by Alex Segura. So I honestly don't even really know what this is about. I don't know if it's an adaptation of the movie. I don't know if it's a continuation. I have no idea, but you do see obviously some, well-known characters on the front there. So definitely need to check this out. It has really nice artwork in it as well. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. So yeah, we'll see how this is. It's just a single issue, which I don't collect anymore, but if I like this, then I can be on the lookout for the trade paperback once that comes out. So just wanted to share this one. This is the Free Comic Book Day edition of Star Wars issue number 1. So recently, I started reading some Daredevil comics. I actually borrowed from my library Born Again, which is probably the most famous of Daredevil stories. And then I read that. I thought it was really good. And so then I purchased on Amazon Kindle The Man Without Fear from Frank Miller. Loved it. Honestly, probably the greatest comic book I've ever read. That run. It was just brilliant. I loved it from start to finish. And so because of that, I thought, I need to read more Daredevil. So I picked up another of the very well-known and very recommended runs. This is Daredevil Yellow is what it's, I think, colloquially known as, because it doesn't say that anywhere on here. But this is by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. And this is another telling, essentially, of his origin story, but it goes into something a little bit more than something like Man Without Fear, which is also an origin story, if you didn't know. And I could not wait to read that. Look at So look at the artwork on this, you guys. Like, it is absolutely stunning artwork. And I mean, of course it is, right? These are from the same people that bring you some of the most infamous Batman stories. And so, yes, of course it's going to be amazing. But yeah, I couldn't wait to read this one. And so this, stayed upstairs with me, and so I could finish reading it. And I absolutely loved it. This story is so incredible. Of course, Daredevil Yellow's referencing the costume because he starts off with the yellow costume and then, eventually he'll get into his well-known red costume. But I think I'm just a giant Daredevil fan. Like, I absolutely love his backstory with his father, and the artwork on all of these I've read is great. Of course, Frank Miller is just one of the greats when it comes to comics. Of course, those stories were excellent, but man, I love this. So my ranking of them at this point, the 3 major Daredevil stories I've read, Man Without Fear is by far my favorite. It is brilliant, highly recommended to anyone interested in comics. Daredevil Yellow goes in at number 2, another origin story, but just told so beautifully. And the ending was shocking as someone who didn't read the issues leading up to this or the stories leading up to this. And then number 3 would be Born Again, which I know most people would probably put at the top, but Born Again, you get toward the later issues. There's like 2 or 3 issues toward the end where it just gets kind of weird, and I didn't love that part, but everything leading up to it I thought was fantastic. So yeah, just an incredible story. If you've never read Daredevil, this is a great place to start. But really, if you can go back and get Man Without Fear, definitely start there. It's just as good as it gets. Now, I love this so much. I'm ranting and raving now, but it's just the artwork is like what's the watercolor style, and it's just so beautiful. So highly recommend this one. This is Daredevil Yellow by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Last but not least today is a very recent pickup. I was watching Near Mint Condition here on YouTube, and they had a whole 2-hour plus podcast style video where they were ranking or listing, I guess, the 10 most essential Fantastic Four stories. And one of them on there really caught my attention as someone who has never read any Fantastic Four, I don't think ever in my life. And honestly, I've never even seen the movies except for the remake that they did a number of years ago, which nobody liked. I didn't hate it. I thought it was enjoyable. But yeah, that's the only interaction I've ever had with Fantastic Four. So I really wanted to find out what is the best of the best and grab one of those. Well, one of these is this standalone story called Fantastic Four Full Circle, written by Alex Ross. And this is a big, oversized hardcover. It looks gorgeous. And the art, I literally just took the plastic off as I'm sitting here because it just came in a couple days ago. But the artwork on this, you guys, is absolutely insane. Look at that. That is beautiful. So this is another one. This is going right at the top of my read list. I have another book from the library right now that I'm trying to get through. I just started it. And so I'm going to finish that one. And then I have to jump over to some of the ones I've recently bought. But the artwork is just so nice. I cannot wait to check this out. So yeah, very excited for this one. Like I said, a brand new arrival here to the collection. So one that I am definitely prioritizing. But let me know if you guys have read this one. I think it looks gorgeous. This is Fantastic Four Full Circle, and this is by Alex Ross. All right, so there it is, another big old stack of comic books over the past month or 2 here, I guess now. This has just been probably the biggest comic book kick I've ever been on in my life, excluding maybe 09, 2010, that era. But yeah, I've just been, like I said, reading a lot, and of course, because the collector in me, if I'm reading, of course I need to buy more. It's awful like that. I hate that my brain works in that way. But anyway, I have another stack over there with a brand new style of book from my collection that I'm really excited to share with you guys. And then another stack of some omnibuses that I've been picking up. And with those, I would like to do a different style where I show you guys the books and kind of flip through them with an overhead. But look for that in the coming weeks here. Like I said, though, I have literally, as of now, I have more comic books over there than I have movies. So it just is what it is, guys. That's the way the cycles go. My different interests always take over. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today. So thank you so much for making it all the way to the end. Let me know down in the comments which book looks the best to you, or what is your favorite out of everything I showed here that you've already read. But that is going to do it. So again, thanks for watching. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. That really does help out the channel. And before I let you go, I'll just encourage you all to consume some media today. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you all next time.